New York Times and the cyberpunk book Outlaws and the uh, Makers of the on the Computer Frontier, or Hackers on the Computer Frontier, excuse me. So what I'm in a writing class at Harvard, and I'm gonna compare the moralities of John Stuart Mill and Kant. I suppose it's not very necessary that we talk about them for this conversation, but I was. It seems to me in one of your articles, I think it was after Mitnick was captured, or yeah, I guess that's the right word, arrested in North Carolina. You said that this fellow's named Tsumoto Shimomura.
It's Tomo Shimomura. Tomo.
Tsutamo Shimomura. All right. He was more of the original hacker. He had more of the original hacker ethic than Mitnick, and I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate on that because it seems to me Mr. Shimomura was doing something kind of honorable. He was helping the country, preserving security, and Mitnick was kind of causing trouble. It seems to me, if unless you please qualify this if I'm wrong, but Mitnick to me seems he wasn't necessarily looking for knowledge. He was kind of going out for the challenge.
Well, Kevin has to sort of speak to his motive more than I can. And now I don't know if you know this, but Kevin recently published his autobiography. So you might want to add that to your list if you don't already have it on your list of sort of books that discuss the morality of what he was doing. It's recently published and it's around, so you can take a look at it pretty easily.
All right.
The title of the book is Ghost on the Wire.
Right.
And Kevin has he has his own moral defense. I could sum it up saying he wasn't doing anything harmful, which I disagree with. To speak to Tsutomo's sort of my assertions about Tsutomo, Tsutomo had a track record of sort of playing with new systems or testing the systems or looking for vulnerabilities. So when Tsutomo would find something that was broken or a security vulnerability, he was pretty consistent in alerting either security people or you go look at it, the historical record is there. In one case, he even went before Congress and testified about the security weaknesses of the first generation digital cellular telephone network. And, I consider that sort of the white hat approach to computer security as opposed to black hat. In the case of actually tracking Kevin down after Tsutomo's systems were attacked and stuff was stolen from him, he went to the San Francisco U.S. Attorney office, and there is a provision in the law within the Telecommunications Security Act that allows technical people to help law enforcement agents. And that's what Tsutomo was doing when he captured Kevin. So to me, it's kind of straightforward. It's not even morally blurry. Kevin, of course, has a different perspective you should look at. So, Tsutomo was one of my sources, so I was pretty close to the whole thing. I watched it unfold over a number of months.
All right. Well, you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, just a few seconds ago, about Kevin. I mean, evidently he did cause some damage to several companies. I'm not sure if this was before the. I mean, he was evidently. I mean, arrested 3 times. Once in the early '80s, and that was your first encounter with him, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, I think the number was 5. I've lost track, but I believe he was arrested 5 times, either 4 or 5 times before the Raleigh Durham arrest. So there's a history of his encounters with law enforcement over a variety of issues. You know, Kevin's assertion all the way through is he wasn't doing it for the money, and that made it okay from a moral point of view. And I just think that that's absolutely bankrupt as an excuse, but that's, my point of view. It's more nuanced than that. There are things that Kevin did that cost people lots and lots of time and money. It's sort of damaging things, closing the doors and all of that kind of stuff. But then what is not, there's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been in print. People lost their jobs in the military, for example, over things that Kevin did because they fell under suspicion. There were careers that were ruined by what he did. But to my mind, the most interesting sort of moral question about what Kevin was doing comes in the months before Tomo tracked him down. He was collaborating, I guess is the right word, with this person who claimed that he was at the Weizmann Institute in Israel. And this person, his online handle was JSD, Jonathan Sanderson Zimmerman. And Zimmerman was the person who supplied the technical skills behind attacking, in one case, Tomo's computers, and finding the vulnerabilities. Mitnick is not technically skillful. He's what's called a social engineer. He knows how to basically fool people, but not fool machines. But he was running the software that this person gave him, and I've always been tremendously curious about who JSD was or is, because he was present. You can find evidence of his activities on the internet up until Kevin was arrested in Bali, Durham, and then he vanished. And it's never been determined who he was, but I actually believe there's some evidence that he was working for Israeli intelligence, and that Kevin actually was basically the cutout for a very elaborate operation to steal next generation digital cellular handset source code and compiler tools and things like that from American technology companies. Now, it's just, I don't have the evidence. We wrote a little bit about it in our book, but JSD just vanished. And Kevin's never spoken to that, but I did find a fascinating footnote in Kevin's book because he talks about JSD and he talks about communicating with him. He had no idea who he really was. But one of the wonderful moments in his book is that about a day before, maybe 2 days before Kevin was arrested, but by this time, Tomo had already contacted law enforcement, and the FBI was on their way to find Kevin. Kevin gets an email from JSD, and it says, I'm going to be offline for a while because my mother had a heart attack. We don't expect you to be around. And then JSD is just gone. So to me, it's a great mystery, and it changes, if I'm right, it changes the moral texture of what Kevin was doing.
Because he may. So what you're saying he could have been working for this JSD fellow?
Oh well, he was sharing information. Working for is an interesting term. He was sharing information. That means that JSD had access to stuff that Kevin stole. So I think that's something that he's never stepped up to. He's never.
So that's
he never acknowledged that he had any sort of moral.
Mitnick or JSD?
Mitnick.
Oh, okay.
He never stepped up to the question.
Right. I mean, this is really interesting. I didn't really know about the JSD. So he basically has never turned up. He's sort of a mystery. That's
vanished from the face of the earth. I mean, it's JSD is Zimmerman. Jonathan Sanderson Zimmerman. If you sort of do some deep Google searches, you'll see a little discussion about this. There's not a lot. You can find it in our book. You can find references to it in Kevin's book. But there's no. I don't know what I'm telling you is true. This is basically speculation on my part.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So Mitnick, yeah, that was really interesting. Social engineering in the cyberpunk book. He evidently, I mean, he was involved with this with Rusco and Susan, but Susan sort of, I guess, turned her back on them. But so he kind of developed these uh, social engineering techniques, um, kind of early, I guess, in his age, or I guess as a teenager. Um, so that definitely has to go. Would you say that social engineering has to go with hacking? I mean, you can't just be really good at technical having.
Oh, you could. You could. There are people who do technical hacking, security hacking, all kinds of reasons who are not social engineers. So they overlap. They're not the same. So that group of people, the Roscoe gang you're describing about, they were sort of this interesting historical juncture. The other thing, if you have time, you should go and read a wonderful Esquire magazine article called "The Mysteries of the Little Blue Box." Maybe the mysteries was it Blue Box or Little Black Box? The Mysteries of the Little Blue Box in Esquire magazine in about 1971. So there were a group of people who were called phone freaks who existed before the computer hacker community did, and they played with the telephone system when it was analog and not really digital. And there was a particular guy by the name of Captain Crunch who was one of these phone freaks, and there was really very little security, and it was a wonderful sort of technical playground to explore. And this group that we described in Cyberpunk, the Roscoe gang, they were sort of doing the same thing at this transition point as the systems changed from analog to digital. And they, once again, when the digital systems were first created, the telephone network had very little real security. And so it was very easy for them to do things. And they were kind of malicious. And I would put most of the stuff they did in the category of vandalism rather than, it wasn't crime for profit. But the social engineering stuff, I think, particularly in the way that Mitnick practices it, is actually tremendously damaging to the community that the early internet was based on, which was a community of trust. And it was people like Kevin who basically destroyed that initial community by their behavior. Because, one of the best human attributes is, the human willingness to help someone. And, even to help strangers. And that was the nature of that early internet and ARPANET community. And it was basically blown up and destroyed by people like Kevin. So there was a huge cost there, even though it might not have been monetary.
Well, so I'm guessing this early internet community was, I guess, in the late '80s, early '90s, or
But going back as far, so the ARPANET actually became functional in 1969, and so it was a community that I sort of defined existing throughout the 70s, and up until that period of about the early 80s, when it sort of people like me discovered the internet sort of 79, 80. So the outsiders, like myself and people like Kevin Mitnick, began using these networks because for all kinds of there's this network emerging as a means of communication, and that's when everything changed.
Well, I mean, just as a side note, I mean that kind of seems. So you think if Mitnick and the Rusco and company weren't, I mean, of course, not limited to, but weren't kind of vandalizing, the internet could still be based around some sort of trust?
Oh, I think if it wasn't those guys, it would have been somebody else. I mean, I think these things only sort of work at a certain scale. And, there's a group of people who sort of grew up as internet optimists. I was one of the internet optimists early on. that believes. I mean, go read again if you're looking at the moral issues. Go read John Perry Barlow's early piece in Wired. I can't remember what it was titled, but he basically was arguing that cyberspace could exist separate from and independent from, the laws that govern physical space. And it was a wonderful sort of utopian idea that didn't really work out very well. I mean, I've come to see the modern internet as simply a mirror for our society, with representing everything good to everything bad that we find in the world.
Okay. Sort of defying the author was Barlow.
Yeah, John Perry Barlow, fascinating guy. He is a songwriter for the Grateful Dead, and he discovered computers and networking early on. And he's a very articulate person. He was one of the founders of this group that was created to defend computer hackers, young computer hackers who got in trouble during the 1980s, called the Electronic Frontier Foundation. It's all prehistory to you, but these issues were fought out, 2 decades ago.
Yeah, I mean that seems. So he this Electronic Frontier Foundation was set up to sort of defend young hackers that kind of messed up, I guess.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, people who were doing what Kevin said he were doing, who were just sort of fooling around with the network, and law enforcement came and arrested them, and they were in trouble. And so there was a feeling that, in that section that they weren't doing much harm, and that the penalties weren't. It was broader than that. I mean, the issue came up. Issues about freedom of speech and civil liberties were beginning to pop up on the internet, and so it was created to sort of act as an organization to defend civil liberties on the internet, freedom of speech, other rights. And it's still around. It's really a vibrant organization. It's not on the West Coast mostly.
So civil liberties. Okay. Do you think that? I mean, I don't want to detract too much, but civil liberties, kind of freedom. Do you think it? I mean, does it? I mean, I'll look it up. But this kind of sounds, well, not necessarily a lot like WikiLeaks, but I saw that you've published several articles on WikiLeaks. So
Yeah, WikiLeaks is an interesting issue. It's right. It sort of all sort of blends together at a certain level. I mean, there is now, as recently as 3 or 4 months ago, the UN decreed that access to the internet is a human right. Which I actually feel pretty strongly about. I mean, I think that there is a great and important tradition there. But access to the internet is access to the internet, not access to other people's computer information. There's a line between internet freedom and individual privacy that I think is important.
So yeah, there's definitely this contention between privacy and freedom. I mean, there's some things that perhaps should be private. But before we get onto that, so I think I would be wrong in sort of comparing Mitnick to Julian Assange. Mitnick didn't really seem politically motivated.
That's correct. That's correct. It would be really, two very different people. Although, they both assert that they're members of this hacker community, but I think Assange had a clear political agenda, and he was very committed to this, radical transparency and also, open source ideas, that have become a political and economic force in the world as well. For whatever you think of Assange, he clearly had a political outlook that framed what he was doing, and I don't think that was true at all.
Well, I mean, going kind of, I mean, I said I'll be looking at this from a sort of utilitarian and categorical imperative standpoint, and I'll be comparing the two. If I were, I mean, I will argue the Kant's categorical imperative. So if we're going from that standpoint, it seems Kant says we should all be kind of truthful with each other, and because truth is the most precious thing. Um, and if everyone was true with each other, I mean, it turns out we aren't. I mean, a lot of people lie, and such things. But if we all were sort of kind of truthful with each other, then would you think that privacy wouldn't be necessary? Because if everything was shared and people weren't trying to screw each other over, it seems to me that there wouldn't really be a need for privacy.
I understand your point. I guess I take it a long time since I've engaged in philosophical discussions. It's a long time since I've been caught. But I know the folk phrase, "Yes, it makes the neighbors."
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Fences make good neighbors.
Oh.
I describe it like philosophy, both with respect to property and with respect to information.
Sensors make good neighbors.
Actually, the word is fences.
Wait, census?
No, F is in Frank. Fences.
Oh, fences. All right, all right. I see. Okay, okay. All right, fences. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I think even Assange might agree that some things need to be kept private. I'm not exactly sure, but I think in an interview that he had on or has on the WikiLeaks website, he kind of I think he admits to saying personal like doctor files don't need to be leaked out.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually see. I mean, I don't know that I can see his argument that in a democracy they have individual privacy and state transparency. I mean, that philosophically, if you're talking in Kant terms, that I can understand that distinction. If the government is truly representative of the people, it shouldn't be keeping secrets from them. That's a very simple point of view. It makes political sense to me. Whether it works in the real world, I don't know.
Right. Well, well, I guess a large counter argument is that spies, if they were exposed, they would be, in somewhat of danger with.
Yeah. Well, and then you have the other, classic invocation is the gentlemen shouldn't read each other's mail. Spies, we shouldn't have spies, I guess is the argument. But,
Right, yeah, that would definitely be a good argument too. That we shouldn't have spies. It's not as honorable. I mean, from some sort of
if you
thing.
follow the technology, I mean, it's interesting to have these philosophical discussions. And I'm off in a world that, I report on the state of the technical state of the surveillance state, and our activities now are instrumented to such an extraordinary degree that you think back to Orwell, and Orwell had no clue what was coming. He understood television, he understood microphones, but we've gone so far beyond that. And in 1999 or 2001, the president, the CEO of Sun Microsystems, was quoted as saying, privacy is dead, get over it.
Oh wow.
And that created quite a firestorm. But I'm afraid whether he was morally right, he was factually right.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I think in your book, or no, I think it may have been the article after Mitnick's arrest. You said that we were kind of cowboys in a post-Orwellian world. I kind of wrote that quote down. I liked it, but so yeah, it seems to be a major issue that technology. If someone were to spend the time, they could monitor basically every phone call, every text, your emails, what blogs you've gone on, um, and as
We're closer to that than farther away from the witness point, my point of view. Yeah.
Right, because everything is becoming computerized. But by the same token, I as we progress more into a technological era, I mean, so you don't think there's any way that we can sort of blur the signal? I think yes, it was in your February 18th, 95 article. You said security, cybersecurity is an illusion or something of that sort. You changing your emails, evident. I mean, you wrote that your email was hacked probably by Mitnick. Um, so if well, as technology increases, you don't feel that. I mean, illusions could be, this kind of switch up, nothing really centralized, could block us from being kind of viewed by Big Brother.
I think the verdict is still out. I think there are very good technologies for protecting privacy, and I think it's possible. But sort of what I watched so far over the last 3 decades that I've written about this is all the trends are moving in the wrong direction. I mean, publicly key cryptography and other techniques for ensuring individual privacy, for ensuring authenticity and identity do exist. So it's not impossible, but just the internet, the way it's evolved, has evolved towards surveillance and away from security. So maybe that will reverse itself. Maybe people will care about individual privacy, and there'll be some sort of Armageddon-like event that will wake us up to the security issues. But it hasn't happened yet.
Well, there was something else I was thinking. I mean, yeah, I'm writing about technology and hackers, and one of my fellow students warned me. You knock on ask too many people, someone's probably going to hack into you. But I feel that a proper maybe response would be that as technology and surveillance is increasing. We should kind of move towards this categorical imperative. I mean, I'm sure there's some. I think there are some things in my email that I wouldn't want everybody to know. But if we move kind of towards this ideal of living, I'm not going to do anything, even if nobody's looking. Um, then it might make us morally kind of better. I don't know if it would be forced because technology is increasing. Do you see where I'm kind of going with this, or?
Yeah, I think I think the principles are good. It's hard for me to see how it would be implemented. But that's it's a wonderful thing about technology. It's so plastic that you can, Lawrence Lessig of Harvard is the one who wrote the book Code is Law, and I think that's wonderful potential of technology. You can shape it in any way you want. So, I think the model's possible, yes.
Yeah, Lawrence Lessig, or Lessig. Well.
Yeah, do you have any context?
Yeah, actually, one of my writing teacher, she's from the law school, and not yet, but I'm actually working on it. I'm gonna try to make my way to the Berkman Center sometime this week. There's actually one fellow, John Palfrey.
Yeah, he's the head of he's a great guy.
Right. I'm gonna try to. I mean, yeah, it's kind of nice that everyone's sort of centralized here. So this is really great. I mean, Mr. So I just want to kind of recap. Mr. Shimomura, you argued, is this guy who's going about fixing things, and he's not necessarily a social engineer. He kind of holds this definition of a white hatter or hat, excuse me, a white hat hacker. He went before Congress, and Tsutomo, or sorry,
No, it's Tsutomo, don't worry.
Tsutomo. Oh yeah, sorry. he's kind of going for security rather than breaking it. That's kind of the impression you gave me. He went before Congress. He's
That's
helping.
true.
Yes. So this kind of original hacker ethic is kind of preserving security, not necessarily trumping it down like what Kevin and some of the other Kevin and company destroyed the trust of the ArtNet. So this original feeling of a hacker would be trust and preserving security to some degree.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, all right. So, well, do you have any other advice?
Well, I guess, if you have, if you write this and you have follow-up questions, just send an email and I'll answer it by mail. Um,
Well, actually, yes, I did have one question, and it might be kind of I don't know how you feel about it, but Mitnick kind of says I've been reading some interviews by Mitnick, and he says you've kind of manipulated um, evidence about him. I don't know if you want to speak to that. I
Sure,
mean, he's kind of
I'd be
accusing
glad
you.
to talk to you about that. Kevin has been saying that for a number of years. It's true that he was sort of he was made a victim by the New York Times and by me in particular, and it all revolves. There's really when you strip it away, there's really one sort of fact point that he argues that I got wrong, and that has to do with the question of whether he had access to a U.S. government agency called NORAD. And so, you look at everything that he says, it all comes down to sort of this NORAD point, which we put in an article in, it was July 4th, 1994, when Kevin was
Still on the run.
he was on the run, and there were 3 law enforcement looking for him. It was a pretty good story. And so I don't really have any problem with the story. The question about that particular fact is an interesting one. And it had, what he doesn't say is it had been reported previously. I was not the first one to report it. The LA Times reported it, God, let's see, so maybe 6 years previously. And when I was reporting the story, I did talk to some associates of Mitnick and asked them if it was true. And they confirmed it, but I was never able to talk to Kevin, and I never talked to NORAD. So in that sense, I think he's probably right in saying I wasn't able to perfectly confirm that fact. But I can tell you 10 things that Kevin's done. Not 10. I can tell you other things that Kevin has done that are as bad or worse. So, I think Kevin's point that he was this innocent victim, just sort of at a high level, is just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
He was a multiple offender, and it was a great story. He had outfitted 3 law enforcement agencies and was on the run, and my sense is he cooked his own goose, and he's complaining that he became a victim of the press. I don't have much sympathy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have this feeling he may not have been working alone. You mentioned the JSZ fellow. So was he working alone with this? I mean, he seems to be the main guy persecuted by the law. I mean, this seems like a pretty prosecuted. Sorry.
He was the only. Well, in this particular case, he was solo. He had contact with the JSC guy, which you can see in various electronic mail messages and his book. But if law enforcement tried to find or prosecute this other person, I never learned anything about it.
Mm-hmm. What you're referring to the JSZ person, or?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, no, I mean other than JSZ, so he was doing this all by himself, basically. I mean, it was just Kevin, or. All right, and I mean, as a sort of a side note, that's somewhat impressive, I suppose. Um,
Well, I mean, impressive. It wasn't technically impressive because he was borrowing the attack tools from other people. But again, what he was really good at doing is exploiting people who were trying to be helpful. So, I mean, I
hmm
think, the scope of his activities was impressive, but I don't think there was anything particularly. I mean, it wasn't technically interesting except for the stuff that he got from other people.
Right. Okay. All right. Um, okay. And if just on leaving on a somewhat not as amazing note, but for the future of security, I mean, just idle talk that I've had with other people. Mitnick seems like he could be, I wouldn't say a weapon, but a good force for defending the U.S. I mean, if not Mitnick, definitely Mr. Shimomura. Um, would you agree with that, or?
Well, I guess, people with technical skills, if that's what you're saying, sure. But I think people with questionable values, like Kevin, I don't quite, I think it's fine that Kevin is making a living now as a computer security consultant and warning people about the risks of what he did. That's good. No one took him kick the rest to figure out that he could do this stuff legally. But I don't think that he is in any way beyond sort of raising the awareness about the problem, doing anything to do for value. But, I credit him for doing that. I'm glad he's out in public.
Okay. So, just if I may tag on to that just for one more second. So you think he should become a little bit more politically motivated, or?
Oh, I got nothing to suggest. No guidance.
I don't want to push it too far.
I'm glad he's not doing anything illegal. That.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Markov, thank you so much for your time. And if I have any questions, would it be all right if I emailed you?
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Please do.
all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care, sir.
You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.